Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. This story starts with a delayed kitchen order and ends with a customer threatening a teenage employee with a screwdriver. Fortunately, security had other plans. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Turns out, "Where's my kitchen?" can be a literal threat. Hello. I thought I'd share a tale from my first ever job. I used to work at a now-shut home-based store in the UK. I worked up from a checkout chick to staffing the customer service desk. I started at 16 years and quickly rose up. The day before this happened, we'd been informed that one of the warehouses that made and shipped new kitchens had been set on fire by accident by a group of kids messing around in it after finding a broken door that didn't lock properly. Unfortunately, 2 of the kids were seriously injured. Starting a fire in a wood and chemical-filled warehouse was a terrible idea, but they were kids. An email had gone out to people who'd ordered a kitchen from us explaining that there was going to be a delay and they can wait or get a full refund and a 20% voucher. I had been inundated with calls and people coming in asking for refunds and such in various degrees of anger, but one stood out. I'd just swapped a screwdriver for someone who had gotten the wrong one. The old one was still on the desk when our protagonist turns up. Cast. Me, C, customer. Me. Hello, how can I see? What has happened to my effing kitchen? Me. Sir, I'm afraid that a fire in the warehouse has caused us to lose the entire stock of kitchens and C. I don't effing care what happened to your effing warehouse. I want my kitchen. I've been waiting for weeks. Me. Please don't swear at me, sir. C. I will do what I like. I want my kitchen now. Me. Unfortunately, sir, due to the fire, the kitchens will not be... This man just could not let me finish a sentence, it seemed. C. You don't listen, do you? I want my kitchen. Me. Sir. At this point, the customer hit his limit of sanity. He grabbed the screwdriver and started waving it at me. Luckily, the desk was quite high, at about chest height, and big enough to have 4 people work in the box without too much difficulty, so I was able to back away from the madman. He was shouting at me at this point, but I cannot tell you what he was shouting, as I was just watching the screwdriver trying not to get stabbed. What our irate customer didn't know was that this store had a security guard, Steve, who was short, muscular, permanently angry, and was a good friend of mine from all the time he spent leaning on the desk pretending to work. Steve had been watching from the other end of the line of checkouts where he stood next to the exit to the shop. At seeing the guy pick up the screwdriver, Steve started sprinting towards us and fully flying rugby tackled the customer around the middle and to the ground, slamming his head into the concrete floor. The customer dropped the weapon and Steve dragged him out of the shop and sat on him till the police arrived. It was when the police watched the cameras that I could see the flying tackle in all its glory. Steve was very proud of that takedown. I think the customer did get his refund, but I don't think he got the 20% discount voucher that others were offered. After Steve's wonderful takedown, the guy shouldn't have gotten anything but jail time and a permanent ban from the store. Then he could get his new kitchen the next time the store was able to get it installed. However, the jerk deserved nothing from the store. And our second story, how to turn a parking lot into a karma delivery system. The grocery store I shop at is part of a chaotic little corner of urban hell. The lot's laid out with narrow, angled, one-way rows, and traffic is constant, shoppers weaving in and out, delivery trucks backing into tight spaces, pedestrians darting through like it's a real-life game of Frogger. To make it worse, this lot's just off a feeder road attached to a busy shopping mall. That road feeds directly into a major intersection with a notoriously long light. So what do entitled drivers do? They cut through the lot at speed, trying to beat the light and shave 90 seconds off their lives. It's not just rude, it's dangerous. These geniuses either don't notice or just don't care that the rows are clearly marked one way. They'll gun it up the wrong direction, running into oncoming traffic, and act shocked when they're suddenly face-to-face with a driver obeying the rules. Cue the awkward and often infuriating dance of who's going to reverse and make way, which always ends up being the person going the right way pulling into a nearby spot just so traffic can move. It's like playing chicken, except the person driving like an idiot thinks they have the moral high ground. Anyway, last week I was shopping with a friend. She was driving, and we were finishing up a relatively uneventful trip. We pulled out of our parking spot and headed down the correct direction when, surprise, surprise, here comes a lifted, coal-rolling, testosterone-on-wheels pickup truck charging straight at us. A full-size American monster truck of a vehicle, chrome grille glinting like it thought it was the final boss of the parking lot. The guy behind the wheel, you could just feel the small D energy. Now, normally people just sigh, pull into the nearest open space, and let the idiot through. But this time, my friend had had enough. She slowed down, not slammed the brakes, just a slow, deliberate crawl until we were a few feet from his massive bumper. There was a parking spot just ahead she could have ducked into to let him pass, and clearly he thought that's what she would do because he had the audacity to stop a few feet back from the space to make room for her. Except she didn't move. Instead, she threw the car in park. I looked at her, and she just smirked. The guy in the truck seemed baffled at first, then he revved the engine, like aggressively, deep, growling, I'm a manly man with a loud toy revs that echoed off the concrete. He started inching forward like he was trying to intimidate her into backing up. He probably assumed that a woman in a smaller car would cave and reverse all the way down the aisle to make way for his ego. Wrong. She pulled out her phone and casually started recording him. Camera pointed right at his license plate. That's when the tables turned. He froze, just for a second, but long enough for it to register that she was not going to be bullied, and now there was a digital record of his childish behavior. I honestly thought he might snap and get out of the truck, but to my surprise, he just stayed put. Meanwhile, behind us, the light he had tried to avoid turned green. One by one, all the drivers he'd hoped to cut off zipped through the intersection while he sat, stuck, face to face with a woman who simply wasn't playing his game. You could see the steam practically rising from his ears. After a few more moments of impotent rage and heavy breathing, he threw the truck into reverse and stomped the gas. The engine roared as he backed up way too fast for a crowded parking lot. I swear he didn't even check his mirrors, just fury-driven instinct, and in his blind rush to flee his own embarrassment, he misjudged the angle. Bang! The back end of his truck clipped the edge of the metal cart corral with a sickening crunch of metal meeting metal. It wasn't enough to cripple the truck, but it sure as hell left a mark, and probably a repair bill large enough to eat through whatever cash he saved by not idling at that stoplight. He didn't stop, didn't get out, didn't even check the damage. Just gunned it backward until he cleared the row and tore out of the parking lot like a toddler running from timeout. My friend calmly pulled the car out of park and drove off like nothing had happened. We didn't even speak for a minute, we were too stunned. Then we looked at each other and just burst out laughing. The satisfaction was delicious, not just because he embarrassed himself, but because for once someone stood their ground and didn't let one of these entitled road gremlins win. Sometimes karma wears silver hubcaps. And our next story. Grandpa shuts down the gas station. In the 1950s, my grandfather worked in the rail yards in Beech Grove, Indiana. He picked up a part-time job at the gas station near the yards for extra money. He was the only employee at the station from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. when it closed for the night, so he was responsible for all the closing activities. After a few years, he picked up more hours and a raise at the rail yard and quit the gas station. However, the station owner never removed my grandfather's phone number from the employee call list, so occasionally he'd get a phone call from an employee, usually somebody trying to find someone else to cover their shift. He'd tell them that he no longer worked there, and that would be the end of it. One night after 11 p.m., my grandfather got another call from the station from a new employee who was having trouble closing out the sales for the day. The call woke my grandfather up, and while irritated, he explained that he no longer worked there and the employee needed to call the station owner. The employee explained that he tried to call the owner, but nobody answered. My grandfather walked him through the issue and asked him not to call back. The next week, another call after 11 p.m. from the same employee, again having trouble with closing the till. Again, my grandfather told him to call the station owner, but the owner wasn't answering his phone. Then the next week, another call from the new employee after 11 p.m. Now my grandfather was completely aggravated and took action. He said to the employee in a rather gruff voice, "Here's what I want you to do. Take all the money out of the cash register, leave the register open, and just go home. Don't even lock up. I'll come in tomorrow and take care of it. Don't do anything else until I call you." The following morning, my grandfather got a phone call from the station owner who said, "Did you tell my employee to take all my money and go home?" My grandfather confirmed that he did. The station owner said, "Who do you think you are? You're not his boss." My grandfather replied, "I haven't worked for you in 2 years, but your employees keep calling me. Do your damn job and answer their calls. Take my number off the employee call list, and if I ever get another call again, you're going to regret it." That was the last time my grandfather ever got a call from the gas station. He never found out if the new employee got to keep his job. And our last story. They used my yard as a junkyard. I moved into my house about 2 years ago, and for the most part, I've loved the space. There's a strip of land between my property and the neighbors, oddly shaped, with about half of it legally mine and the other half belonging to them. It's not fenced off, but the property line is clearly marked on paper, and I've since had it surveyed just to be sure. Things started off quietly enough until one afternoon while working in my office, my desk faces a window with a good view of my front yard, I noticed something strange. My neighbor had rolled an old rusted-out sedan, hood missing, tires half deflated, clearly not drivable, into the side yard, partially on my property. I watched as he parked it with casual confidence like he was just shifting something in his own garage. At first, I thought maybe it was temporary. Maybe he was clearing space on his side and it would be gone by morning. Nope. Days turned into weeks, and the junk car sat there like a monument to middle-finger neighborliness. One evening, I was pulling into my garage when I spotted another member of their household, this time the teenage son, sitting inside the junk car with the radio on, smoking a cigarette. Right there on my side of the lot, under a tree I had paid to trim just a few weeks earlier, when I got out of my car and started walking toward him to ask what the hell he was doing, he immediately bolted back into their house like he'd been caught stealing copper wire. I figured it was time for a polite conversation, so the next weekend I caught the dad as he was getting into his truck and mentioned the car. I explained that it was on my property, that I didn't want it there, and that I'd appreciate it if they could move it. He blinked, smiled that passive-aggressive smile, and said, "Oh, I thought that space was kind of shared. We've been using it for years." "Yeah," I said, "but I own that part. I've got the survey and everything." He said he'd look into it, and of course nothing happened. A couple of weeks later, I cleared out some old vegetation and debris from that side of my yard, thinking maybe once it was cleaned up, they'd get the hint. Instead, I got a notification from my backyard security camera late one night. I opened the live feed to see them rolling another junk car. This one looked like it hadn't moved since Y2K onto my side of the property. I activated the camera alarm and watched as the wife looked straight at it, paused for a moment, and just shrugged before walking off. No one ever came to speak with me. I tried calling. I knocked on their door. I even waited one afternoon when I saw the son cleaning the rims on one of the dead cars. Every time they'd suddenly vanish like ghosts. I'm not kidding. It was like I had garlic breath and they were vampires. After enough of this passive nonsense, I did some research. I came across something called a letter of no trespass. It's not dramatic, it's just direct. A legal notice informing them they're not permitted to access, use, or place objects on your land, and if they do, they can be subject to fines or legal consequences. I drafted it, had it notarized, and mailed it to them with delivery confirmation. Did it feel a little harsh? Sure, but so is pretending you own someone else's land while using it as your personal scrapyard. Within a week, I noticed both junk cars were gone. No apology, no conversation, just vanished like they'd never existed. Fine by me. Now I've installed more visible boundary markers, upgraded my camera system, and even planted a few thick shrubs along that side of the property. They haven't crossed the line since. And honestly, I don't care if it made things awkward. I didn't move here to babysit someone else's broken down cars. I moved here to live in peace. And finally, that's exactly what I have. Bravo! You handled this like a pro. And hey, if they ever get bold again, you've got the receipts and the boundary shrubs to remind them who actually owns the land. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.